guys, Matt here from Laidlaw Harley-Davidson. So I want to talk about the second bike in Harley-Davidson's Icons collection. Last year we saw the first one. We saw the launch of the Icons collection with the Electroglide Revival, the bike they built that was modeled after the 1969 Electroglide. And really the premise behind the Icons collection is to reintroduce bikes that were significant bikes in Harley-Davidson's history that they deem as iconic bikes. And I'd say that the El Diablo is definitely one of those bikes that deserves to be an icon. And it was modeled after the 1983 FXRT. And the FXRT is one of those bikes that, especially in modern history, has only increased in popularity. Back in the early 80s, when the Evo started coming out, it was a major turning point for the motor company coming out of the AMF days. And then, having these fairings and these bags that were actually first seen on the Nova project, and the engineers adapting those to fit the FXR frame and chassis and make it a little bit more of a touring-oriented bike. It's definitely a bike that can be deemed as an iconic motorcycle in Harley-Davidson's past. So Harley-Davidson has reintroduced that bike in like a retro version of that onto the Lowrider ST platform that was just launched this year. And so with that, you've got a custom paint set on this by a company called Gunslinger Paint, a custom painter that Harley-Davidson has done business with in the past. You've also got the stereo system that is offered as a parts and accessory option through the catalog on the regular Lowrider ST, but as a standard equipment on the El Diablo. So that's about $1,000 part there. You've got that, and you've got the custom paint. And as Harley-Davidson has said, only about 1,500 of each of these Icon models are made. So this is a very exclusive bike, very limited production. I think we have like number 427. Only 1,500 of them made worldwide. Already some of the chatter I've seen online, a lot of people say, wow, there's a lot of advertisement and a lot of hype for a bike that most people can't get. And I think that's probably the one drawback that we're going to see for a limited edition motorcycle, and that's serialized and it's so limited, is a lot of people aren't going to be able to get them, and that's unfortunate. But the people that do, it makes it even that much more special, right? You've got an MSRP of $27,999, so you're about $6,250 price increase from a regular Lowrider ST in black. A lot of the commentary that I'm seeing already as well is people are saying, okay, well, wow, that's, we're looking a little over $6,000 for this El Diablo. And me personally, I feel like the value is there outside of the exclusivity. A lot of people say, wow, you're just paying for the fact that it's a numbered bike or that it's this limited edition bike. But in Southern California, at least, we've done a lot of work with custom painters over the years, and a paint job like this with this level of detail and craftsmanship, you're easily paying $5,000 to $6,000 for a paint job like this. And then you get the $1,000 for the stereo system, which is a Bluetooth speaker system. It sounds really good, by the way. In my eyes, the value is definitely there. If you want to see my opinion on this bike overall, I would guide you towards the Lowrider ST video I did up in Santa Barbara. Mechanically, everything is pretty much identical to the Lowrider ST. That's a pretty common question right now. Does it perform better? Is the motor different? The answer is no. It is the 117 cubic inch Milwaukee 8, same engine that you're gonna get in the Lowrider ST. And so everything I say in that video about the performance, the handling, the seating position, all that stuff, the fairing, it's all gonna be identical to the Lowrider ST. I've enlisted the help of my dad, who was very much involved in the sales side of the business and the service side of the business back in the 80s. He was full-time doing that, and so he was very much involved in the FXRT when it first came out and got to see it as it was a new bike rolling off the assembly line. And so I wanted him to give us a little bit of the story behind what the customer's reception was of the bike, and some stories of him first riding the FXRT for the first time at Laidlaw Harley-Davidson.
Hi, my name's Jerry Laidlaw. I was asked by my son Matt to talk a little bit about the FXRT and the history. To give you a feel for that bike and its place in the Harley-Davidson touring world, you might want to go back a little bit farther to 1982. In 1982, Harley-Davidson came out with a FXR. I remember seeing the very first one we had. It was black. It had a shovel head engine, spoke wheels, and it was rubber mounted. And I'll never forget the first time I saw it sitting there idling. The motor was just shaking around in the frame, and I thought, wow, how could this be good? Because it looked like the motor was ready to fall out. As soon as you crank the RPMs up to about 2,000 or slightly above, everything smoothed out. And when we rode it, it was a great motorcycle. It handled good. It was super low on vibration, and '82 was the year that Harley-Davidson got away from AMF, and all the bikes that year that I can remember had a little set of gold wings on the front fender, and the theme for that year was "The Eagle Soars Alone," and everybody was so happy, and we all expected great things, and soon after came the Evolution engine, as we probably all know and understand. Going back to the T, the very first Evolution that I saw was the summer of 1983, and I walked out of the service door because I was the service manager, and a highway patrol officer rolled up and parked it in front of the door, and I walked out and looked at it, and it was all white. And I looked down and I saw that new motor, and I just couldn't believe it. I was in awe. And he said, yeah, Harley gave us one of these to test for a little while. It was almost a complete surprise. This is a little side note. A few weeks earlier, we were at the Harley-Davidson Capitol Drive plant with my dad, and they gave us a tour. And we walked around and saw the whole assembly line and the motors being built. And right there next to a machine was a cylinder, and my dad picked it up, and he looked through it like that, and he goes, "What's this for?" And the guy kind of looked at my dad, and his face got almost white, and you could tell he was just scared to death, and he said, "You weren't supposed to see that." And he looked at it, and it was, the new Evo cylinder with the steel liner and aluminum fins and everything, and we knew it was something was coming. They wouldn't talk about it. So when we saw the Evo motor and I saw that cylinder and the design, I knew that's what it was that we had a piece of in our hand a few weeks prior. And Harley did a really good job keeping it under wraps. Highway Patrol pulled up, there was that new bike, and we were just in awe. So we hustled it right in there, and he said it needs a service. We had a technician that exclusively worked with the Highway Patrol services and stuff, and we changed the oil and did everything that we knew how to do. And everybody looked at it, and it was absolutely amazing. Earlier that year, I guess there were shovel head RTs, the touring models, but there wasn't very many of them, and they really weren't much of an impact on the market. But in '84, when the Evo was in production, simultaneously with the shovel head, they produced both that year. People think that the shovel heads ended in '84. Well, they didn't. There was actually some 1985 model wide glides, 4-speed with a Kickstarter shovel heads in '85. So it took Harley a while to phase them out. And some people, die-hard Harley people, whatever, they didn't trust that new motor. One guy said, even a couple of our old mechanics said, that thing looks Japanese or something, some stupid remark. I don't trust it, man. Guys in our Harley-Davidson riders group, they bought the new Evos, and they went on a trip up to Sturgis that summer, which it wasn't '84, but it was probably '85 or '86 maybe. And they were all going up this big grade that we have outside of Los Angeles, about 150 miles out. We call it the Baker Grade on the way to Las Vegas. The Evos were just blazing up that grade at 75, 80 miles an hour. Our mechanic who didn't trust the new motor, the Evo, his bike was seized, and he was done for the day. He took it apart with the tools he had in his saddlebag, and it took him a couple days to, I guess he sandpapered the piston or whatever and got it back on the road, but he never said anything bad about the Evos again because they were superior. Soon after that, Harley-Davidson had a black and white FXRT, not T, the P stands for police. And we got to keep it at our store, and a few people, police departments and whatever, would borrow it and evaluate it, and it was getting great reviews and resounding success. I just loved the thing, the way it handled. It had that bouncy seat on the back with two little springs under the Harley-Davidson solo saddle that came out in like 1929, I think was the first part number. And I love riding the thing. It wasn't long after there was an event at Glen Helen Raceway in the Los Angeles area on the way up the Interstate 15. And they had races for Harleys on Speedway motorcycle track. And I remember hearing about it, and I missed it the year before. I said, well, I'm going to take that FXRP out there. and I'm going to race all those guys and see what happens. It was a speedway track, which was only about, I don't know, 1/10 of a mile around, or maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And I think the next 3 races, that race and the next 3, I won all of them. It was easy. The FXR motor worked so well, and that chassis handled so well. You could slide it, you could brake it. It was just phenomenal compared to the old Shovelhead. So I had a really good time on that bike, and I'll always remember it. It had a kind of an interesting thing. Nothing new to the motorcycle world, but it had an enclosed chain on the back. Other models of Harley-Davidson's touring bikes had that enclosed chain on the back. Well, unfortunately, it was like an oil bath, but it would leak oil. And we got so tired of trying to seal up that enclosed bath chain on the back of those touring bikes, we finally, in disgust, we let all the oil out. And took a grease gun and I just squirted a bunch of grease in there. I'd heard about it, somebody told me, and we just squirted a bunch of grease in there, and the grease would just kind of fly around inside that enclosed chain thing, and it would keep the chain well lubricated and greased because it's stiff. It wouldn't leak out on the garage floor. That probably wasn't the factory recommended fix, but it did work, and that's kind of one of the things we had to do with that enclosed chain. This was, of course, before the belt came out. One other story, if you want to hear it. I rode that same FXRP demo that the factory gave us to Laughlin, first or second year of Laughlin that we had it. We, I think, purchased it from the factory. I rode it out to Laughlin and it was wonderful. The fairing, as you can see, gives great coverage. It's aerodynamic. It cuts down on the wind. The motorcycle handles great. It's comfortable. It was just one of Harley's best ideas ever. Anyway, coming back from Laughlin, I filled it up with gas. Probably in Laughlin, I probably should have waited till I got out to the road, which was near Interstate 40, but I filled it up in Laughlin. There was some guy, he was messing with me and he just wanted to pass me, and I was bound and determined he's not going to pass me. We're out on the road and we went back and forth for miles because that stretch of road is well over 100 miles. He would come up on me and I would speed up and he just couldn't pass me. I mean, I had it up to as fast as it would go, 115 or so, and he would back down and I would slow back down to about 75 or 80, and then we'd go through traffic and then all of a sudden he'd make a run at me and I turned it up and he couldn't pass me. And we went back and forth, and he probably made 7 or 8 runs at me trying to get me. One time he almost got me, and one time I almost got myself killed. It was stupid, but I wasn't going to let him get by me. There was traffic and other bikes, and they were in the left lane, and he was coming up, and he was going to shoot through those guys, and I couldn't get into that left lane to pass this truck. And he was going to make his move, and there was no way I could get over and get through him. So I passed this semi-truck on the right side between the truck and the edge of the roadway, which was only about maybe 7 or 8 feet wide. And I went through there at about 75 miles an hour, and I was going at least 15, 20 miles an hour faster than his truck. And I remember that truck driver just blowing the horn saying, you know, "You are a stupid guy. Hell ain't half full, but you'll be there soon," you know, type attitude. But he didn't pass me. So there was nobody with me. I was riding alone. So I got just outside of Barstow. And other guys I knew kind of pulled up alongside of me and they wanted to race too. And I was all ready, man, and all of a sudden the motor just started sputtering and dying. And I realized it was out of gas. So I turned it on reserve and I was about 15, maybe 20 miles from Barstow. Out there, I remember looking at these black lava rocks, and I slowed way down to about 45 miles an hour, and they were just taunting me and gunning it and come on and let's go and everything, and I'm just pointing to my gas tank and everything, and I couldn't race because I didn't have any gas. And when we got back, you know, a week or two later, they're all, "Hey man, what was wrong with you? You're driving like an old lady or something." I said, "Man, I was out of gas because I raced this other guy." And they're all, "Yeah, right." You know, they didn't believe me, but it didn't matter. I made it to the gas station, filled up, and rode home. But That was one of my favorite motorcycles of all times. And I didn't even technically own it, but I had more fun on that bike than any that I can remember. They didn't sell great. I mean, they sold okay. The guys that bought them and liked them, they loved them, and they were a perfect bike for the guy that was kind of into touring. But a lot of guys were just into, you know, the Harley scene and just riding around and not too much long distance touring. And sometimes the Harley crowd takes a while to figure out what's really good. Kind of like all the people that a couple years ago were complaining that the new Softail, you know, was a mistake in light of the Dyna Lowrider S. Everybody squawked and said the Dyna Lowrider S was absolutely the best bike Harley ever made and nothing would ever be better, and this new Softail was a mistake, and it absolutely isn't true. It's better. I don't care what people say, they can't convince me that the new Softail is not better in overall performance, handling, simplicity. The FXRT kind of filled a niche. A lot of guys I remember that bought FXRTs came off of other brands. BMWs, believe it or not. They were more of a sport touring bike. There was guys that just couldn't quite get themselves to buy a full touring Harley-Davidson with the saddlebags and everything because they just didn't want all that weight, and they like to go around corners, and they like better braking, better handling. This way they can go on a nice trip, enjoy mountain roads and twisties, carry quite a bit of stuff in the two saddlebags, and have a really nice ride and not be burdened with a bike that weighs, you know, hundreds of pounds more. They weren't the biggest seller. I mean, we sold a lot more Heritages and other models. Slowly but surely, people caught on and they realized that this was a great bike. It had excellent road manners, good brakes, good handling, and it was not so heavy to, you know, move around, and all the advantages of a lighter bike. It gained momentum, and it has been gaining momentum up until this day, and you can see where this design and this concept of what it has morphed into with the ST series. What makes this new model iconic? Well, it was patterned after the 83, 84 FXRT and or FXRP. The truth of the matter in my mind, this is my opinion, when the police started riding the FXRP again in 84 with the enclosed chain and everything, Harley customers look at what the police have and what they're riding, and they're immediately attracted to it. They saw that fairing, and you know, that was in other bikes, but when the police started riding them, that gave it a lot of credibility. You'll have to remember, prior to 82, at least in California, the Highway Patrol and many of the police departments, they were riding other brands, Hondas and BMWs, and Harley had lost the police business. They just weren't able to compete with what was currently out there. And I think there was maybe, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 years where the Highway Patrol wasn't using Harley-Davidsons anymore. I can't be sure of the date, but it was a lot of years. And when it came back, I think that's where Harley turned the corner on police business and the touring business. It can stand up and be compared to any bike in the world in its class, and for what it's designed to do, it's wonderful. It does a great job, and you don't have to, you know, make apologies for it in any arena. That's where, like Harley did, kind of turn the corner and establish this model as an icon, because it brought the police business back and it exposed Harley customers to sport touring, which was an alternative to just having a big, huge dresser with a big, big gas tank and windshield and fairings and tour pack on the back. Not everybody wants that. So this was the first real sport touring motorcycle that people could ride and enjoy, and gave them more options and more choices. So you can see why Harley had to make one of these. And this is a fantastic motorcycle with the brakes, the upside down suspension, the fairing, the saddlebags, the styling. It's got it all, and it's definitely going to be a bike going forward that people will have to recognize as one of Harley's greater achievements of all time.
Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to check out our future content. And if you're looking for a bike in Southern California, make sure you hit us up here at Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. We'll see you on the next one. Later.